Good morning. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I hope everybody is well caffeinated. You're halfway there, right? So as mentioned, I am the new executive director for the Center of Marine Science. I feel very fortunate to be in this role. First, I want to give a shout out to the Business Journal for this opportunity. And as Vicki mentioned, I feel very privileged to go after the last two speakers because they set it up perfectly, right? With talking about ports, talking about bridges. How does the Center of Marine Science fit in at UNCW? So to give you a bit of an idea, just as a reminder, I know a lot of you know CMS, but we try to cast a very broad net in terms of research. And we are looking at ecosystems. We are working around the globe from the deep sea to the Appalachians, Arctic, Antarctic. We do ecosystems, we do biotech, we do how businesses are affected in coastal regions. And so we have this very broad breadth and broad umbrella that comes to bear when thinking about marine and coastal systems and their influence on those who live right by them. I'm sure most of you know that about something like 80% of the world's population lives within like 200 kilometers of the coast. So people, societies are very dependent on the coast and coastal areas. Okay, so this raises some concerns and thinking about the future. I'm going to pose two questions to you guys today. I'm not going to give you answers, unfortunately. We have to work through those together. But looking forward, Natalie just did a great job of talking about where we've come since the last hurricane. Looking forward, we do have some future concerns that we need to think about. Not only myself and the scientists that work at CMS and UNCW, but as a community, as businesses, as municipalities. Some of those things, for example, are water quality, flooding. Those first two, I've only been here 2.5 months. Those first two have been huge in the short time I've been here. There has been a lot of movement and talk about things like PFAS and Gen X in the Cape Fear River. There's also been a lot of discussion about flooding and flood control. And there's actually been a lot of movement, as I'm sure many of you know, at the state level, making money available to municipalities to help deal with flooding and mitigating flooding and the negative effects from flooding. Right? And this affects everybody. It affects businesses. If you can't move your product because of floods, you lose money. Right? So there are a lot of concerns like this. Then we have things like changing climate, environmental protection, sustainable business practices. Also within that sustainable business practices, there's the blue economy and moving forward on that. So a lot of these fall in what I call either coastal resiliency or coastal health. Because as you all know, one of the great things about Wilmington is the environment. People come here because they like living here. The comment about people relocating, I'm one of them. I feel like I should go to Relocators Anonymous or something like this, because there are quite a few of us here. Okay, so the first question. How will sea level rise and climate alter coastal regions, coastal lines, and impact communities, right? This is actually really important. These are not easy answers, and I know it might seem like you could blow this question off, but as businesses, I would argue you really can't. You really need to think about this if you're going to project forward and know what the impact is to what you're doing, right? Even if you're in an area that's not prone to flooding, flooding is going to impact the community around you and what's going on. So to give you some idea about that, some people will say, oh, sea level rise, that's a thing down the road, it's not happening. That's not true. Sea level rise is happening now. We see effects of it around us now. One of the big things that is happening, and we get these ghost forests. These ghost forests are from saltwater intrusion, which is because even just a couple millimeters, a couple inches of sea level rise pushes salt water farther up. Plants can't survive. That's a bad thing. That's not only affecting regions like this, but that is affecting areas where people live, people work, and so on. Okay, and this next one, just to illustrate the point, you all should recognize the map. If you look especially at the northern regions, this is a map of where things are currently. The blue is water. under an even modest projection with changes in climate and sea level rise, this is what the map looks like in about 2065 or so. You'll notice that northern region is really ballooned up. You see a lot more water up the Cape Fear River. This is going to impact things, right? And so as businesses, as community leaders, we need to think about what are we doing, how are we developing? Okay, so where does CMS come into all this? Well, CMS and UNCW scientists can help you think about some of these things. They can help with the modeling. They can help project what may or may not happen, and they can work with you. And we have a lot of tools to do this. We have, for example, Narcissa Prinoscope, who has drones that she regularly sends out to look and see what's happening in waterways and geomorphology. We can help you with these types of things. Okay, so that's the first question. The second question is, again, a thought question. How will human reliance on marine systems change in the next 30 years, right? You all think back 30 years, and maybe it doesn't seem like that much change, but think about technology. Think what a cell phone was like 30 years ago. Think what a car was like 30 years ago. All that technology is coming to play in things like the ports, in things like controlling traffic moving around the region. As we move forward and try to figure out what's going to happen in 30 years, of course we want the crystal ball, but I would argue the companies who think seriously about this question are going to be in a much better position than those who don't. So one of the things we know is people love to be at the beach. Ecotourism is huge, right? People want to live here. That also impacts realtors. We know that's going to continue to grow. Now, I just mentioned these problems with flooding and sea level change. That's going to impact how we can do things like this. But the other big thing is the blue economy, right? We've talked about the blue economy a little bit. Basically, you can think of anything that is touching marine systems, coastal systems as part of the blue economy. And there's a lot to it. And to me, the blue economy is not just growing businesses, it's doing it in a sustainable and smart fashion so that you can do it but still have the environments to enjoy and still be able to look forward and do really great, fun things in that space. Some of the blue economy we know, we work with already, that upper thing. We have fisheries, we have the ports, we have marine transportation. And with the ports, it cannot be understated how much of the supplies you all consume daily for businesses, for personal life, move across the water. It's just an amazing amount. But looking down the road, we have some pressing questions that we need to, as a community, think about. One of the biggest ones is offshore wind energy. This is a hot topic right now, right? Some people argue for it, some people argue against it. There are really interesting logistical considerations in things like supply chain and supply chain management. There's also interesting aspects to consider with environmental change, but there's also the technology angle, right? Now, this is a very hot topic here. Interestingly, I started my career up at Woods Hole Oceanographic in Massachusetts about 20 years ago when these exact same arguments were happening around the Martha Vineyard windmill farms. The windmill farms, they're going to happen. I mean, that's sort of my opinion, is they're going to happen. The question is, will we position ourselves to be ready to take advantage of them and work with them and build businesses and institutions around them? Again, with CMS, we can come in and help with some of that, usually more on the environmental side, not so much on the technology side, but there are opportunities there. Where we are really good at technology is with some of our marine biotech. So you all know about Marbionic. As Vicki mentioned, that's down there. And Marbionic is a very interesting collaboration between academics and companies, really pushing innovation and commercialization. Justin Struilli and Heather McWhirr and their groups at UNCW are really pushing some of that as well. with that, if you think about all the things that have happened recently in medical technology, so humans, you think about COVID, you think about what most people might not realize is the vaccines that we're using to fight COVID. That was a totally new type of vaccine, a new technology. Those types of technologies are being used not just in humans, but in other organisms to help us understand those organisms and help us use those organisms better. And there's a lot of potential in there, everything from better oysters, better finfish, to fighting harmful algal blooms. That technology is there. We can connect with you on some of this, and I'm happy to talk to people about this. Okay, so sort of starting to wrap up. We're looking for partnerships and opportunities. My door's always open. Just come track me down. Just go down to CMS or ask, for the executive director. You'll find me. A lot of these next couple points are really about coastal health, coastal resilience, and then that last one of building the blue economy. We can help people think outside of the box or in new directions to help innovate, help commercialize and innovate new ideas, new technologies, especially in the biotech field. And then one last thing. One of my things that I'm going to start doing as executive director is I'm going to start making a much more concerted effort to build these partnerships. So we have a Planet Ocean series where we connect with the community. A couple of the last talks are up there. One was on medicine, one was on aquaculture. If you're interested in these, please come talk to me, start checking these out. We're going to start doing these in a way that draw much more attention and hopefully build connections to the Wilmington community. And I will stop there. Thank you very much.